peaceful and beautiful and physical and angry all at the same time.
Were you idiot, your mind would cave in and your heart would explode within your chest.
This is going to be a shame.
Here we go!
What's happening, everybody? Welcome inside a brand new edition of the Tall Can Audio Podcast. Matt Robinson with you, as always, in the TCA Studio in beautiful Bytown, Canada. This is going to be a fun one. Joined today by a certified beauty, James Duthie. What's happening, man?
I am so thrilled to be in your humble abode in the Nepean. What do they call it? What that is a short form.
The Peen?
Like, the P? The P?
I don't know. It's not great.
Nobody ever does it.
The Peen's not great.
I was trying to think of something cool on the spot for it, and I couldn't.
How'd it go?
The Peen didn't go well.
No.
It's good to be with you, buddy.
You and I have chatted a couple times, but it's always been online. And I saw on Twitter in stalker fashion that you were going to be in the nation's capital and reached out. And you were good enough to make some time for us to actually come in studio. And I appreciate that, man.
No, my pleasure. It's great to meet you in person. And you got a really cool studio here. I never know what to expect. I didn't know if it was...
We'd be sitting at my dining room table with
some sort of little bathroom in a basement or something like that somewhere. But this is actually really
We're long
nice.
past those days. We did have those days on this show, but we have slowly grown out of it. Want to talk to you about the new book. It's out now, Certified Beauties. Want to pick your brain on a couple things, and we will do. Yeah, I know you're anxious.
Well, it's so rare for me. Usually, I'm working.
Maybe over anxious even.
So I have a day that I'm not actually. Well, I actually am. I do have to go. Do some book promotion, but that's it. So it's like rare that I get to actually consume an alcoholic beverage during a day.
Well, why don't we go ahead and open them at the exact same time?
3, 2, 1.
Perfect.
Wow, that was just absolutely nailed it.
What have you chosen there?
I have an elbows up light lager. I was saying to you before I went on that I noticed you had a Mick Ultra in the fridge, and you said that was only for Ian Mendes.
Yes, it is.
I have once in a while been known to partake in the Mick Ultra. You know what's the worst about the Mick Ultra? They don't sponsor you or anything, right?
They do not.
I tried to get them to sponsor rubber boots a while back, but I didn't get a bite. So.
The journey continues.
Is that sometimes like there'll be like an 18-year-old waitress. You'll be at like a patio, and she will just audibly make fun of you when you order one. And I'm like, I'm a man in my 50s. I can order what kind of crappy non-beer beer I want if I want. Okay, it's got 90 calories.
That's it. You'll be seeing Mendes later on tonight. You can tell him that you almost took one of his beers. But
this is good. The elbows up.
Yeah, and it's it came out a couple of months ago when we were all still. I think a lot of people are still riding that vibe a bit, but the rhetoric has died down a little bit. And for me over here, Beyond the Pale, this one's been around for a while. The Darkness, an oatmeal stout, which.
So do people just send you all these types of beer because you talk about them on the podcast?
Well, sometimes. Not these guys. I have to pay for this one, but it's worth it.
Okay.
But we do have some great brewery friends who are kind enough to come in.
Cowbell, are they good to you? You want me to get... Hi, I'm James Duthie for Cowbell Brewery. When I come on Matt's pod, I like a good cowbell. How's that?
If they ever sponsor us, I'll have that clipped and saved. And... yeah, no,
Well, they could sponsor my Rubber Boots podcast, although we only do about one episode a year, so that probably wouldn't be worth their while.
But yeah, no, we like to support a lot of the local breweries and try different things, and then some of them like to come by when they've got something new, and they'll sit down and talk. Ian from the Whippersnapper Brewery was just in here last week. Had a fun chat with him. He's got something out right now to celebrate. Well, I got to be careful here because he was being careful here. The start of the NHL season in Ottawa. And any art on the can that may slightly resemble any local professional hockey franchises is purely coincidence. Could be any number 7 from any team on the can. It was called the Juicy Rebound to start the NHL
What's the
season.
thing they used to show at this front of like movies or TV shows? Any characters
Purely
that bear resemblance is purely coincidental.
That's exactly what this was.
Right.
So, good listener, check that out. And they've got some fun Halloween beers here dropping over the next week or two as well. So,
awesome.
Shout out to those guys. Jimmy, there's a couple of different things I want to ask you about, but let's start here because as you and I are sitting down and chatting on Thursday afternoon, some of your colleagues are probably kicking around the Rogers Center as the Blue Jays Dodgers World Series Media Day is taking place right now. You have seen a Media Day or two.
Yeah.
And I'm intrigued by this because in this instance, it's all the Toronto baseball media, Toronto sports media, Canadian national media, and in these sorts of events, the news shows up as well. It's not just sports. And then you have LA, and that is not a small sports market or news market. You also have, I believe, our friend Arden Zwelling reported at least 100 Japanese media members following Roki Sasaki and Shohei Ohtani and stuff like that. I'm curious, you've been to Super Bowls, you've done the Masters, things like that. What does a day like this look like for your friend Hedge and your colleagues down in Toronto?
I personally hate media days. I'll just say that right out. That's my least favorite thing. I'm so blessed to cover all, these kind of events, and we'll never take any of them for granted. But those are the days I do not like. I think there was a time early in my career covering Super Bowls that I kind of got a fascination out of that media night, where everybody dresses up in crazy outfits. I think I was at that one where that one reporter proposed to Brady.
Oh, okay, that one, yeah. Okay.
And then there were these two guys. There was another the Mexican stations. I shouldn't say Mexico, maybe it's Spanish. I don't know what country they're from. Always do the wackiest stuff. There were these two guys with puppets that would show up every year, and they were doing like hand puppets. Would ask the questions. So
it's very serious.
I enjoyed it for a couple of years just because it was a novelty, and then it just became an absolute shit show, frankly. And and I quite often get to miss it now because I do a lot of Leaf games, and there's often a Leaf game on Tuesday night of Super Bowl week. So I will fly in late Super Bowl week, like Wednesday, and have to miss media night, and I do not miss that at all. So long-winded answer of your question, saying it's kind of mayhem.
Do you think your friends down there
they'll have fun.
Like, is it cool, the novelty?
It's different
it's
this
in
World
Toronto
Series.
And it's here, but also like I'm used to being able to walk up to John Schneider whenever I want to, and now I can't even get close to him. Right?
Yes, the first even hockey, the first Stanley Cup final that I covered, because in the early days, like Gord Miller used to host with Bob McKenzie and whoever we had, Pierre Maguire. So I didn't take over hosting of the Stanley Cup final till 2006, coming out of the lockout. So my first cup final was Carolina and Edmonton.
Right.
And in those days, you could go into the room. Maybe part of it was Carolina, Edmonton, so there wasn't that much media there. But I could go in, sit down on the bench.
Members.
Yeah, very few. Or Mexican hand puppets.
Right. They must not have
Imagine
got
that.
an invite to that. Yeah.
Mark Recchi, what do you feel about the power play problems? So you could sit down on the bench in the room and talk to players for 10, 15 minutes after practice. And even now with the Cup final, for the most part, if you get two decent big market teams in there, it's impossible to get a word with somebody, which is a real pain. So I don't want to sound like old guy screaming from my lawn, but I do miss the days where you could sit and have a conversation with somebody. But again, this is different. When I remember the Raptors media day was fun. Chris Bosh had just flown in.
I was trying to remember, was game one in Toronto or in?
Game one was in Toronto.
Okay.
Or at least, because they won it.
Because you and Chris Bosh were covering
They won it in game 6 in San Francisco.
But I couldn't remember if it was 2, 3. That wouldn't matter. 3, 4, 5, and back. Yeah,
I think it went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like 1, 1, 1.
Sure.
I think.
Okay. Because that would be the closest comparison that we've seen in Toronto for a major, an event this size. We love hockey, but it's not the same.
So that was the first time I met Chris Bosh as an analyst. They hired him to be my analyst for the NBA final, and that was cool. So I remember that day, and I think I brought my daughter down, which was a neat experience for her. So that was neat. But in general, I just want the games to start, when you get this close to something. And by the way, the Jays, as much as I'm rooting for them, are wreaking havoc with this damn book tour I'm on. Because, so I was supposed to do my first book signing on, what night was Game 7? What night was the Springer home run? Monday? Yeah, so that was supposed to be my first book signing in downtown Toronto. And as soon as they won Game 6, I texted my publicist and I said, look, there's no chance I'm going to do this book signing. Not for me. Not like I'll go. I'm not trying to be snotty, but no one is going to come to my book signing. No one. Not my family. No one. I would not come to my own book signing if a Game 7 was on. And now, so today I get a text from a great buddy of mine who actually lives in Bermuda.
Oh, wow.
And he's come up and he's like, hey, I got a ticket right behind home plate for game 1 on Friday. Do you want to come?
Oh, man.
And I'm doing a book signing in Barrie. And I'm like, I can't. Now, we moved up the book signing a little bit just for the Jays,
Sure.
but so I had to turn it down.
Well, man, you saw...
Curse this damn book.
Well, and the Leafs moved out of 7 p.m. on hockey night. Never happens. It's going to be, I think they said 5 o'clock on Saturday night, 6 o'clock, whatever it is. That never happens.
But that's the right thing.
Oh, of course it is. But when you can move the Leafs, that's a big deal, right?
Yeah. It's cool.
Are you a big baseball guy?
So baseball in many ways soccer was my first love because it's kind of the first sport I played, and hockey. But when I got into my early teens, I fell crazy head over heels with the Expos and baseball. And it was, I've written about it in previous books.
Yep.
Like, it was my absolute obsession. I listened to every single game. Sometimes we would only get them on French radio, which I barely understood, but I listened. One of my first dates with a woman, female, teenager, whatever she was back then, we went to a movie, and I had my Sony Walkman, which is what was, ear pods back then, and listened to the Expos game during the movie. And there was not a second date. When I turned 16, I think, or 17, my sisters baked me a birthday cake, which was Tim Raines' head. Tim Raines, for anybody who doesn't know, he was my favorite, still my all-time favorite athlete. And that's like the weirdest thing ever. This cake with Tim Raines' head was my birthday cake. And one of my idiot friends who came to the party put like white sugar under Tim Raines' nose.
Oh, no.
He was he had done a little cocaine, and I think I was ran to my room in tears. I was so upset. It was a tragic moment. So long-winded way of saying that I love the Expos, but when they died, and when their amazing year got taken away by
94,
it crushed me, and I kind of revolted against baseball.
I don't think you're alone in that.
And so I would say that it probably became the sport more than any others that I completely abandoned. Obviously, when I was doing Sports Center, I had to know enough about baseball to be an adequate sports commentator. Sure. But it would be the one. If they told me tomorrow, I'm very fortunate at TSN that they'll let me cover a lot of big events.
Yep.
But if they said, hey, come cover the World Series, which they wouldn't say because Hedge and everybody else does such a great job, but I would say no, because it would be fraudulent, because I don't follow it at all. Like, I literally picked up on the Jays in late August or September and started carrying.
I think that's one of the coolest things about a hot baseball season, though, is it grabs people as you go. Like,
right, but you can't be
I understand
be a commentator and do that. That's not right. But I'm like everybody else, so I'm fully on board, and I'm starting to get those. I certainly had in Game 7 those feelings that I had back when I watched the Expos. Yeah.
Is it, growing up in Ottawa like you did, I make no bones about it, I grew up in the GTA. It's been the Jays always for me. I was just telling the story on the show a couple of days ago that I remember 92 in the sense that I remember being in my uncle's living room with my parents, but I was like 9 years old, I'm falling asleep, and I don't really care, but vividly remember the drive home and all the horns honking, right, and everything going on. So it's strange the things you remember. I'm curious, growing up here in Ottawa, like a lot of the people I talk to here have sort of been burned by the Expos thing. Would you say Ottawa at that time was a staunch Montreal?
Staunch Expos.
Yeah, it's not like...
Not Habs, though. Like, when I grew up, I think
seemed to be more of a split.
It was
right?
a
like
real
Leafs,
split
Habs,
between the Leafs and Habs, for sure. I was a Blackhawks fan when I was a kid.
Okay.
But and then Islanders, I bandwagon there a little bit too.
What an odd fan.
Yeah, I know. I followed Denny Potvin to whatever team he was going to go to. So, but yeah, I was Expos diehard. I went to the first playoff game ever. I've written about this before, but I had a sign. This was how stupid, nerdy, and uncreative I was. I wanted to do a sign to try to get on TV. This was the Expos against the Phillies, I think, the first game ever, playoff game ever in Canada. And I took one of my mom's sheets and I spray painted a sign that said, Expos are serious about winning. Like a pun on World Series.
Jimmy.
Like the worst thing ever. And I can remember holding up the sign.
I'm so proud of
in the
this.
stands. Yeah. And a guy in front of me turning around and reading the sign and then going, what the fuck? and it crushed little 14-year-old Jimmy's soul.
This was my creativity maxing out. This was,
and I look back now and go, you were I mean, I'm still a geek, but that was like really embarrassing. But I was there. Jerry White hit a 3-run home run. They won, and then went to the first game against the Dodgers and crushed when Rick Monday hit the home run. So yeah, they were my life back then, and it's nice to get pulled back in.
I've discovered, I would say to you, like, I've been on a bit of a journey through these Blue Jays playoffs. And I've always been a Jays fan. I've, in terms of how hardcore or how attentive, I'll admit it's sort of risen and fallen with the eras of the team, right? Mm-hmm. They were irrelevant for a long time. And I'd still watch, at that point, maybe 60, 80 games a year, but never sitting down first to ninth inning and watching it all. And I don't know, and you got to be careful with recency bias, but I don't know that I have ever been happier as a sports fan than Monday night when they won Game 7. And it made me wonder, I think I'm a more knowledgeable Leafs fan, but I might love the Jays more.
That's interesting. I
don't know that it's, like I said, you got to be careful with recency bias, but I've just been on cloud 9 all week, and they haven't won it yet. It's just going back and being on this level, and maybe it's just the Leafs don't give me that, right? The Leafs don't get that far ever. I'm
trying to think of the times I've felt that way. Certainly, back when I was a kid when the Expos won. I'm a huge Niners fan, and they won all those Super Bowls, and I felt that way when they won. More recently, the Raptors, which I got to cover, was very cool.
And that's one that I talked about. I'm not much of a basketball guy, but when talking about the level of sports happiness or fandom or goosebumps or whatever you want to call it,
right,
on the level of Game 7 Monday night after that win and the George Springer home run, I thought about Raptors 2019 and I loved it, but I was so happy for my friends who were huge Raptors fans. And I loved it, and I jumped on the bandwagon. I was obviously cheering for the Raptors, but it wasn't my thing. The only other things that kind of exist for me on this level are like 96 and 24 men's Olympic relay, right? Like men's hockey 2010.
What about 2010 is one for me for
women's
sure.
hockey 2014 because of the way the comeback happened, right? The women's soccer in 21. Penny and McIntosh dominate. Like, it's only Olympic stuff. It's only national stuff.
Yeah, because that's all. Like, there's no. We live in a fragmented nation when it comes to sports. I mean, the Jays kind of unite people. There are still some Expos fans who refuse to cheer for the Jays.
And there was a bit of a
people out west cheering
the
for
Mariners,
cheering for the Mariners.
Yep.
The Olympics is the one place where there's no question, right? From coast to coast. So those would be mine too. 2010. The other one I was going to mention, frankly, was the Red Blacks winning.
Yep.
Now, I'm really good at not cheering because this job does kind of suck the fan out of you. I don't really cheer in the Stanley Cup playoffs. I'll get accused of being a Sens fan simply because I'm from Ottawa sometimes. Sometimes people think I'm a homer for the Leafs. People can listen and hear whatever they want to hear, right?
Of course. It's the Toronto.
But when the Red Blacks won, I don't want to get into the long story, but my dad was dying, and I have so much history going to Rough Rider games with him, and so I kept thinking in my head, and I was doing that game, right? I was hosting it.
Yep.
I was like, this is their last shot. And I knew my dad had like a year to live tops. And I'm like, this is their shot to win. And so I got up on stage and presented I do the Grey Cup presentation. And, tried to be professional, was professional then. And then I walked off stage and called my dad, and I was like bawling, kind of, because I knew what it meant to him for that to happen, right?
Well, this is it.
And I was so nervous watching that game, which is so rare for me. Like, I'll get nervous watching, like you're talking about, Canada in a gold medal game, a World Junior gold medal game, something like that, because I'm a Canadian. I get invested in it. But it's rare in a professional sporting event. Even when the Niners are in the Super Bowl, I'm a little into it, but I'm thinking more about doing my job afterwards. But that Red Blacks game, because of my pops, man, I was so nervous for that game, and I was so shocked that they won. Because being an Ottawa football fan, you don't expect to win.
You've seen some things,
I've been through some shit, man.
And that's sort of the way, not quite as life and death as you're talking, but the way I loved the Raptors when it was like, I'm so glad my friends are getting this experience right now. And I loved it too.
I feel that way about the Jays, and I feel that way with my kids.
Yeah.
So quick other story.
Yeah.
92, I'm working here in Ottawa as a news reporter. Max Keeping is the famous anchor from Ottawa. He's down, they're doing live shots from the Jays' first World Series. Max buys 2 tickets from a scalper for $1,500, first row on the first baseline. He calls me at like 2 o'clock. I'm in Ottawa doing a story and says, hey, for $750, you can come down here. I bought 2 tickets.
Yeah.
You're going to have to pay for it, but
Yeah.
you can come join me at the game. I file my story. I buy a plane ticket. I get a hotel at the, whatever is the Sheraton Center, the only hotel I know in Toronto at the time. So the whole thing cost me like $1,500, $2,000. I get there just in time for first pitch. It's game 5. The Jays are up 3-1. And Lonnie Smith hits a grand slam in the first for the Braves. And they're up like, I think, you'd have to look it up. I feel like it was 9-1 or something that game.
Something ridiculous.
And I'm just saying, why did I do this?
This is so much money.
Because you want to be part of history.
Of course.
But then when you pay a bunch of money and you lose, it sucks.
Oh,
And
I'm the wrong part of it.
So my son, who's 25, lives in Toronto. And what I was getting at is it's really cool for them to go through this because they haven't had much their whole lives. My kids are 25, 24, 22. They haven't had any, besides the Raptors run, that was it for them. So they're into this. And that's, you live vicariously through them. So he texts me and he goes, Dad, I can buy a ticket for $375. Should I do it?
Which game is this for?
This was for Game 7. Oh. And I said, yeah,
of course
you got to do it, buddy. And he did it. And I think he ended up getting it for $300. He was in the very back top row of the stadium.
Yeah.
And, he texts me like 2 a.m. going, this was like the greatest night of my life.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And so that's the cool part now, is seeing them go through it.
And you're seeing now like all the worst parts of what society's become. Like they said the most expensive ticket for 92 was $67 for inflation. That would now be like $180, and yet they're going for $3,000 on ticket.
So the $2,000 I spent to get to Game 5 is probably like $25,000 now in today's dollars, right? Anyway.
You mentioned the Red Blacks there, and I was going to get to this after we talked about the book, but you've provided me a bit of a segue here. When we were talking about whether to do this now or to put it off, you had said, I'm going to be back in November. And the first thing through my head was, well, it won't be to cover a Red Blacks playoff game. You have seen some shit, as you referenced, as it pertains to CFL football in Ottawa. And I'm just sort of curious how close of an eye you're keeping on it here. I know you have, if not a love for, at least an awareness of football in the nation's capital. And it's starting to get bad again. Like for several years, myself included, people would hang their hat on, give it a little time.
Yeah.
It's still a really fun time to be down at the stadium. They've done a nice job. It's a great presentation. And that is being chipped away at, right? Like
It brings me a ton of pain.
Because we're
probably as
approaching-
much more than anything in sport.
Yeah.
Because it shouldn't, like you're in a 9-team league, and I used to say this about my years in following the Rough Riders. Like I went to every game with my dad from 8 years old to like 28 when I left Ottawa. And in those 20 years, we had 2 9-9 seasons, which I always joke I call the dynasty years. And the rest of the time we sucked. And in that time, Toronto, BC, Winnipeg, they were good and then got bad and then got good again 5 times.
Right.
Well, we sucked.
Yeah.
It's not mathematically possible. And so when the Red Blacks were reborn and you had that great, out of nowhere, get to a Grey Cup and then win a Grey Cup, and you're like, okay, this is truly going to be different. And now to see it going down the same path pains me greatly because the fan base has been, it started to erode a little bit here. You can see that, like you said, but it's generally been great.
Yeah.
Like the game,
the fans have done
the game
their part.
ops, everything. Like it's a great atmosphere to go to a game,
Nice
but you
place
have
to
to
be.
win
Yes.
eventually. And a couple of the Red Blacks were at this event I was at last night, and I was talking to them about it, and they love their coach and everything. And I just, there's 2 things I'll say, no offense to the 2 guys that are there, but you got to get a quarterback at some point. And you think that you would stumble onto like a Davis Alexander or something at some point, right? That you would just almost luck into recruiting the right guy or signing the right guy.
Like, we don't even know now with Brown, if he's healthy enough. Is he, like when they went and got him, I was like, that's the best guy available. It's worth a shot.
But injured, and I think he's good, but I don't. Again, no offense, I don't really. I guess we'd have to see him healthy for a few years. I don't know if he's ever going to be great, and I don't know. Like I know that like Rick Campbell, I think was that was probably where things started to go downhill
Yes,
when they
it
got
was.
rid of him.
Yeah.
And I was a massive fan of him. I think they should have made him maybe the GM.
Clearly they chose Desjardins over him.
And so, like I said, because of my past here, that pains me more than anything else. I suppose if the Senators were ever in a position where it started to stumble, but I think they're in a pretty solid position now. That
You're
would
not
bother me.
suggesting the Sens didn't stumble recently.
Well, you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
I'm talking about not talking about short end of
Yes.
season stumble. I'm talking about serious franchise stumble. Because like I said, it's not like I'm a diehard fan,
No.
but I care about this city.
Of course.
And I care about sports in this city, and I want it to freaking succeed so bad that's what drives me nuts.
When the Red Blacks came back in, everyone understood, right? It's an expansion team. It'll take some time. And then it didn't. Like in year 2, it
was crazy.
You're in the Grey Cup. In year, was it 3 or 4? They win the Grey Cup. And it's now been like since 2019, they can't figure it out. And, you know, I'm with you. Everybody I've spoken to seems to suggest that Bob Dice is like the greatest guy in the world and the players love him. But it's not working.
Yeah.
And so that may be the first thing that stumbles. I don't know how deep they'll cut this offseason.
He'll be gone.
I don't know whether Sean Burke will get another shot at hiring a coach or whether he'll be gone as well. But how close are we to getting to those days where it's those old Rough Riders, where it's, or is there still enough goodwill?
I hope there's
ownership?
enough goodwill, but if there's another year, like if it's 4-14 or whatever next season, and it is hard to like turn things around in one off season, right? It is usually a build.
And I think most of us were high on the offseason they had last year, bringing in Stan back and some of the other pieces that.
So, like I said, I give a ton of credit to the fans here for sticking with them, and I don't know, they have to fall into somebody. Whether it's a new coach, new GM, new quarterback that turns things around, because I can still remember, I don't know if it was I guess it was season 2 maybe, and it might have been the season opener, and they were in Winnipeg, and Winnipeg was a juggernaut, and it was like 21-0 Ottawa in the first quarter, and that was the first moment I said, like, what the hell is going on, right? That there was something magical happening, and
but to your point, they had the quarterback that year, right?
Hank.
Yep. Let's talk about the book.
Yeah.
My first question is, after the first one was called Beauties, this one's called Certified Beauties.
Right.
What certification process did the people in this book go through? What training did the people in the first book lack that did not have them be certified?
Only because it's you, I'll tell you the truth. I just said, like, why don't we just call it Beauties too, right?
Sure.
Like anything else. And the publisher, I think that like books that just have 2s on them, I guess, just like movies, that sequels don't always do great.
Sure.
And so they said it's better if you call it something different.
Got to upgrade these.
Yeah. And so, I sit there and racked my mind for a few weeks, and this was kind of the best that I could come up with. So that's why it's called Certified Beauties. But it definitely is Beauties too.
Sure.
There's no bones about it. It's the exact same premise as the first book, but all new stories. I was actually worried that people would just think I repackaged the first book or something, right? Because the covers are kind of similar as well. If someone's really paying attention, the player on the cover of the second book has a 2 on his back, which is our kind of Taylor Swift Easter egg, not really, of saying it's 2, but it's 50 something stories, and same premise as the first book, where I go to people in hockey and I say, tell me one great freaking story. I probably said this to you the first time we were on the pod, is that I read a bunch of hockey biographies and such, were all great books, but frankly there's like 2 or 3 really great stories in each book, and the rest of it is
Well, and I'll be the guy to say it. Like, a lot of the time, you're like, enough with the childhood. Can you get to the point where I know the team and your teammates?
I grew up in a northern town, backyard rinks.
Yeah, no, just tell me your funniest whatever, or your best story.
And that was my thought, and I think it was during COVID that I sort of said to myself, I was reading one, and I said, why can't we just cut all this crap out? And frankly, even telling me about winning the Stanley Cup, I kind of know, right? I watched it. So let's just forget all that and just give me one freaking great story from your career that nobody knows about, right? I don't care if it's like the greatest game you played in the NHL, if it was Pee-wee, if it was something happened on the team bus, if it was a whacked out teammate, just tell me anything. I always say, if you're sitting down with your best friends for a beer and they say, whoever you are, Sidney Crosby, Bobby Orr, Wayne Gretzky, whoever you are, Brady Tkachuk, tell me like one of your favorite stories from your career that nobody knows about. The trick is to get them to tell you a story that they haven't told, and to get to trust you with a story that they've never told the media before. I'm lucky enough to have enough decent relationships with guys, and I think that they trust me. And so that's what it is. And so you get this wide-ranging thing where some guys will talk about a crazy game, and a guy will talk about some prank he played. And that I try to write books the way that I want to read them, which is I want to be surprised on every page. I want to laugh one page and maybe cry the next page. And that's kind of what hopefully the readers will get from this.
When I went through it, and I have finished it already, I went through the audiobook version, which was incredible.
First time I voiced a book.
They could have found
weird.
a better reader.
I know. But this is my book. I'm James Duthie, and this is my book. It felt very strange sitting in that booth reading your own. And then I had to read, because there's a lot of quotes in the book. The other guys are telling the stories.
Yeah.
And so I have to be, Sidney Crosby or Brady Tkachuk or whatever. And I wasn't trying to. The only voice I tried to impersonate was Brian Kilray in one of the stories.
Which was terrific as well.
But and there's also a lot of swearing.
Yes.
Because hockey players swear, and I want it to be
a little blue at points.
I want it to be, the way it is, authentic. And so I had to say a little thing to my mom at the beginning, because I try not to swear too much myself, trying to be a semi-professional broadcaster.
Sure.
But there's F-bombs all over the place. And so it was weird for me saying, and then Tkachuk says, fuck you, Giroux, that kind of thing. It was weird.
I love the way you just kind of laid that out, because one of the interesting things that I found going through it was there are several chapters that have different formats, right? Like Zen and Konopka, it's 19 teams or in 14 teams in 19 years.
Quickly on Zenon.
Yeah.
I interview these guys looking for one story, and Zenon I talked to for 3.5 hours on the phone, and he gave me a story from every stop in his career.
Right.
And I was going to pick one, and then I sat back and I liked them all so much. I said, you know what? Zen Canuck was not the biggest name in the world.
Sure.
But he is what this book is about. He is a character.
He's a beauty.
We always talk about journeyman, so I want to write the full journey. So I wrote a story from every single stop in his career. I called it 19 teams, 17 broken noses, and 2 pet bunnies or something like that, because the guy has pet bunnies, which is the weirdest thing ever. But so partly that is me also not being bored in writing, trying to make it a little bit different every chapter.
Sure. And, to me, most of those are, oh my God, or howling, laughing stories. And then, it's not actually in this order, but maybe the next chapter is about the Goudreaus. Right. And you framed that chapter as friends and family of Johnny and Maddie Goudreau telling a story in their own words. And then, we'll get back to something silly. Cheryl Pounder locks out a member of Team USA and makes them sleep in her garage.
Yeah.
Or, I thought it keeps you on your toes a little bit and makes it a little more interesting to listen to.
Well, I think with the first book, I spent a lot of time pondering, how am I going to, you end up finishing the book and you've got these, 50 chapters or whatever of completely different stories. And so I would labor about trying to make a flow, like you say. Do I flow and put the really funny ones together, and then the serious ones together? And none of it made sense to me. And so in the end, I literally took a piece of paper and wrote a one-word short form for the chapter, and then tore all the pieces of paper off and sat there on a table and just kind of
just shuffled it.
Shuffled it. Well, I didn't do random shuffle.
Yeah.
Then I would go, okay, these two are too much alike. But I intentionally tried to make them as different as possible, back to back to back, just so that there was no rhyme nor reason to it. Because if you were sitting in a bar with a guy telling stories, people go all over the place.
Of course.
Right? Like this podcast.
This is what this podcast...
Yeah.
I meant to say this off the top because I loved it when I was reading the introduction to your book. Before guests come in here and we fire up the mics, I always say, this show is better when it's a pub table conversation. Right. Interrupt me, correct me, bust on me, whatever you need to do, but let's just talk, as opposed to me just straight up interviewing you.
Right.
And that's what it says in the introduction to your book. Try and picture yourself being told these stories. I'm paraphrasing, obviously.
Right.
Like we're having a beer together or sitting at the bar and somebody's getting ready to fire.
I'm glad you felt that, because I'm sure that'll throw some people off. You're right. There's
Let the conversation go where it's going to go.
There's this chapter about the Gaudreaus, and
Yeah.
there's a chapter about Ray Whitney pooping his pants during a game. So it is all over the place, but that's the way I wanted it to be. On the Gaudreaus topic, by the way, I was, it was actually, I was scheduled to interview Keith Yandel for the book on the day that the accident happened, or the day after. And we were talking via text, and he's like, "Can we not do this today?" And I'm like, "Of course we're not going to do this today. Like, well, let's talk in a month or whatever," because he knew them.
Sure.
And then when I talked to Keith, I'm like, I would like to do something, but I don't want it to be. It's so sad, so gut-wrenchingly sad. I don't want it to be that in this book.
Mm-hmm.
So, what can I do? So I kind of figured I wanted a chapter that, frankly, their kids could read when they get a little older.
Yep.
And not necessarily cry, but smile.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I'll keep with the Beauties theme, and I'll talk to people that knew them, including their family members and their best friends, and try to get the Beauties type stories from them. I want funny stories about Johnny and his brother Matty. And so that's what we tried to do in the book, is get stories that would make people smile about them. As well as, obviously the backdrop is
well, and this is it.
sad.
Like, as I'm working through that chapter, it's like, these are the best guys in the world, and yet it keeps taking you back to, and that's why this is so sad, right? Like,
it's true. It's true. It's an odd. I know it's
a tough.
It'll be an
but
odd
it's a
chapter
good
to read.
It really is.
Yeah.
As you don't have to give any names here,
Yeah.
because I know the whole idea is, give me one great story that we haven't heard from each of these people. Did you ever have to, whether it be in this one or the first one, go back and go like, there's just no way I can write that story. I cannot print what you just told me. Has that happened at all?
Yeah, there's a few of those. I think most people, hockey players, coaches are smart enough to self-edit themselves.
Sure.
Not
like if I'm Ray Whitney, that's a great story. I'm not sure I would have told that story about myself, like just my own embarrassment.
I would likely be the same. And I as you know, by listening to my podcast, I tell a lot of embarrassing stories about myself. But I love that he tells that with no shame.
Yeah, and I don't want to spoil the whole story, but yeah, he poops himself before a game, and there's a whole story around it, and it's a great story. But
yeah, I ended the book because I thought it was great.
Myself.
But yeah. I'll give you one. Like, there's nothing too crazy in there, but one player. I never know what I'm going to get from these guys, right? Like, sometimes, like with the Whitney story, it was Graham Dillette at the Masters, who's really good friends with Ray. Ray caddied for him when Graham was in the Olympics, actually, in Brazil. And he said, you got to talk to Ray Whitney because there's a story that is like just crazy for your book. And sure enough, it was. So I get a lot of that where people will say, hey, I interviewed Kevin Bieksa at the Stanley Cup final a couple of years ago, and he said, hey, you got to talk to Darcy Hordichuk. He's got this crazy story. And then Darcy Hordichuk says, you got to talk to Brad May. And
sure.
That's how a lot of it works for this book. But quite often, I'll call a team or whatever and say, hey, can I get this guy or that guy or one of your guys? And, they'll set me up with somebody, and they just set up a time, and I have no idea what they're going to tell me. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know if it's going to be a good story, bad story, whatever. And one guy called me, and he's a current player in the NHL. I'm not going to mention his name. Yep. But he said, yeah, I got one for you where I got healthy scratched for like the 6th straight time. And I was really bummed about it.
Is it wrong that my name keeps my first thought is Frank Corrado? He's another story. He has his own story.
This is definitely not Frankie. This is not Frankie Corrado. So he said, so I get scratched the morning of a game, and I go back to the hotel and I say, screw it, and I order 2 buckets of beer to my room, so 12 beer, sure. And I drank them all in like 2 hours, and then I got a call that somebody got hurt, and I got to play, and he goes, I was completely smashed for the first 2 periods of the game. And he finished, and I said, I mean, it's kind of a funny story, but you're still in the league, And I really don't. I also care about these guys,
of course.
And I don't know that your kids want to read that you were drunk during an NHL game. I know Gary Bettman doesn't want to read that you were drunk during an NHL game. Maybe if you were retired, I would think about publishing it, but I do I do get protective over them a little bit in that sense.
This is maybe going to make you look bad.
This is a book. Like books do last forever.
Yep.
It's not, I guess everything lasts forever these days with podcasts too and such, but it's not the same. And so I just didn't use that in the book.
Did you ever read Sean Pronger's book, Journeyman?
Yeah, Danny Murphy, I think, wrote that with him. No,
yeah, I think that's right. And my favorite story in that one, for the listener maybe who's not familiar, and James, maybe you'll remember this, that he's called up to the Rangers, but he's clearly going to be a healthy scratch. Everyone knows it, so he goes green light the night before, just to practice, not even a game night.
Right.
He comes back the next morning, hung over as all get out, and all of a sudden, Adam Graves or somebody is sick or can't make it. So for morning skate and practice, at least, he's a placeholder on Gretzky's line.
Right.
He goes up to Wayne and he says, look, Wayne, here's what's happened. I'm not in a good place right now.
Right.
Just don't pass it to me. Kind of just help me get through this so that Keenan, or I don't remember who was coaching the Rangers in 94. It doesn't matter.
Keenan.
It would have been after 94. Sorry, because Gretz was there.
Okay.
Yeah. So Coley or whatever it would have been. Wayne goes, it happens to all of us, man. Don't even worry about it. But then they get out and they're skating around, and Wayne, as good as he is intentionally feeding him the worst passes in the world.
That's funny.
And clanking them off his stick and over the glass and stuff like that. And Pronger's like, I know that guy can tee me up. I know he can find me. But Wayne is intentionally, and then he's turning to the coach, like rolling his eyes, like, seriously? This guy? And then turning back to Pronger and kind of winking at him and like
that's
giving
great.
him shit. So,
that's great.
To me, that's a story that goes in a book like this. Right?
It's very similar. Kevin Bieksa's story in the book is a similar story where he was a rookie with the Canucks, and Mats Naslund was the captain and had
Marcus
a
Naslund,
Marcus, what did I say, Mats?
Mats, yeah.
Had a party at his house, and Bieksa got completely smashed on J-Lore red wine, and then the next day, whoever was running the power play, was Sammy Salo maybe, was hurt, and Bieksa got the biggest break of his career and was completely hungover. So that, to me, that was a little bit different than being completely smashed on the ice during an NHL game.
Yeah,
But,
for whatever reason, I don't remember much about. There was two things I remember out of Sean Pronger's book. Was that story where Wayne is intentionally making him look bad, and every time Sean Pronger would call his wife at a different, like at a time she wasn't expecting, because there was no cell phones or whatever. She goes, where are we moving to now? Right.
Right. The other one that was interesting, I did a full chapter on Terry Ryan.
Yeah.
And
I didn't know much about him.
And that was, I'd listened to Terry. Terry, for the listeners who don't know, was a first-round pick of the Habs and sort of the big hope of Newfoundland, one of the greatest players to ever come out of Newfoundland. Mm-hmm. And his career kind of went sideways. He sort of had a renaissance because of Spit and Chicklets. He's a great storyteller and went on Spit and Chicklets a couple of times and told some stories. And I thought, I heard him on Spit and Chicklets and said, I kind of want to know the whole story of Terry Ryan, because it's fascinating. And it's kind of a movie in many ways. He was the one who came back and had a fight in his 40s. He got signed for one game.
ECHL.
People remember in the ECHL with the Growlers.
That was just a few years ago, right?
But Terry's stories are nuts, nuts. And I had to edit out a couple of those. Like, he told a story about Spit and Chicklets about going home with a girl from a bar in Toronto, and then finding out it was a guy. And I sat there and said, I don't think I'll put this in the book, but
thanks for telling me
the fact that Terry told the story, I God love him for doing it.
Sure.
But yeah, he had some wild stories too. So it's really a fun.
It is.
The fun part for me is sitting and listening and getting these guys to tell stories. And Sidney Crosby, for instance, who writes the foreword for the book. And I'll be frank, he didn't sit down and write with pen and paper. Sidney sent me a long voice text.
Okay.
Which is what he did for the last book too. He would like be on a plane. He'd be on a plane somewhere, and he'd say, and he'd send me voice memos. So he would just be on a plane board and think of a story and say, "Hey James, I got another one for you," and he'd just send me the voice memo. And so that's what he did for the foreword for the book.
Yeah.
But to get to hear these guys, tell these stories they've never told except, on the planes to their teammates.
Sure.
That's what I really wanted to do. Is I wanted to let readers, fans, get to places that they would never get to and hear some stories that I'll say, like, pods like Spit and Chicklets are great, but they're also a curse to me, because once in a while, like, I got this great story for the book about Darcy Hordichuk capturing an alligator and leaving it on Roberto Luongo's porch, right? And I'm right. I got this story from Hordichuk, and it's never been told before. And then Luongo goes on Spittin' Chicklets a couple months ago and tells the story. And I'm listening going, no, Roberto, no, right? Those guys do such a good job. And that's what they have guys on telling stories that once in a while Bruce Boudreau did the same thing. I got a great Bruce Boudreau chapter in the book, and he goes on and tells a couple of stories, and I'm like, damn it, I wanted those only for you're selfish, right? You want them only for the book, but obviously they're going to get out there.
That was it. And in that regard, it's really fun. As we talked about kind of a few minutes ago, it is the best chapter from every hockey player's book you've ever, with all the crap.
That's a great, and I've never put it that way, and thank you for saying that. That's what I hope it to be.
I know you're short on time. We're short on time. We won't keep you here a whole lot longer, man. I'm glad you were willing to come in and do this. We finally got to do this face to face.
You do an awesome job at this, and I'm glad the podcast is doing well because it deserves to do well.
Thank you.
And I'm glad I got to come in and check out your studio and have a beautiful Elbows Up from Cowbell. I'm James Duthie for Cowbell. Once again, if you're going on a podcast with your buddy Matt in some corner of Nepean you've never been to, drink Cowbell. Thank you.
James Duthie is a certified beauty. The book is called Certified Beauties. It is available now in many formats. Kindle, your local bookstores. It's an Audible book, which is where I took it down. If you can put up with the reader, it's well worth taking down in that way. Thank you so much, James. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me in, buddy. Appreciate it.
We'll wrap it up here. Stick around. It's become a bit of a TCA book club. Next week on the show, Mark Hebscher is going to be on. He's got a new book. Andy Petrillo has a new book. I believe you're familiar with that book.
I wrote the foreword for that book.
That's right.
Buy mine first, but have your money left over, then pick up Andy's.
Couple of weeks down the road, Oren Weisfeld's got a great one. I'm looking forward to this,
I did not write the foreword for that book.
He is a guy I'm looking forward to talking to because I admit it all the time. I'm not a huge NBA guy. We talked about this before, but I'm in love with this chapter of Canadian basketball, and that's what this book is about, the golden generation.
Bob Weeks gives me a hard time because Jennifer Jones has a curling book out that Bob Weeks wrote. But I did a quote for, they ask you sometimes to do quotes for the back
on the
of the book
jacket kind of
But they
thing.
put my quote on the front of the cover, and they didn't put Bob's name on the cover. So Bob worked for a year on this book, and I got my name on the cover, so I bug him relentlessly about that. Remember that Jennifer Jones book that I wrote, Bob?
Anyway. Can't wait. This is, like I said, become a bit of a TCA book club, so we're looking forward to that here over the next few weeks. Stick around. Until then, my name is Matt Robinson. Thanks once more to James Duthie. We're going to shut it down here for the week. We'll be back on Monday.
I thought it generally sucked. I didn't think it was a specific suck. I thought it was like an all-encompassing type of suck. So, we're going to try and rectify that. But for right now, I'm going to be pretty pissed about it.